This is a chocolate lover's dessert. Rich, deeply chocolatey with a warm, molten center that pours out when you cut into it. Today we're making my wife's favorite dessert, chocolate lava cake. It looks fancy, feels special, and comes together with just a few simple ingredients. It's perfect for Valentine's Day or honestly any night you want an easy dessert that feels a little over the top and just a little special. This is bittersweet chocolate, and I'm really not too worried about cutting it perfectly, as you can see. It's all going to melt together, so a rough chop is really just fine. And using a really good brand of chocolate is really what matters most here. So now that the chocolate is chopped, we're going to move on to our butter. I like to use Kerrygold butter, and I always use salted butter for all of my recipes. With so few ingredients, it's really important to use good quality ingredients, and your butter is just as important as your chocolate. All this is going to melt in the same bowl anyway. I'm not too worried about getting it cut perfectly. We're just going to throw it in the bowl, and we're going to melt the chocolate and the butter together. So now that we got a bowl with our butter and chocolate, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and get a pot and just put some water in there, and we're going to put it over medium heat and bring that water up to a simmer, and we'll place our bowl on top of that pot, and we're just going to melt the butter and the chocolate until it becomes one nice, really silky, smooth texture. Next, we'll get our dry ingredients ready. So this recipe is really simple. It's just flour, powdered sugar, and some salt. I like to have everything measured and ready to go once the chocolate's melted so everything comes together quickly. And as you know, I don't like to use measuring cups. I always use a scale to measure things out to the gram, just because it's more accurate that way. And then for our eggs, we'll need 2 whole eggs and 2 egg yolks. So obviously we'll separate the whites. I'll use the whites for an omelet or something for breakfast the next morning, and we'll just use the yolks for this recipe. So now that the eggs are separated, we can prep our ramekins out. I originally thought I'd get 4 portions out of this, but I ended up with 3. These ramekins that I have now are a little bit bigger than the ones I used to use, which is the more traditional size, and that's totally fine, but I only got 3 of these. So I'll butter each one of these ramekins really well and then coat them with the cocoa powder. I like to pour the cocoa powder from one ramekin into the next, and then if there's a little bit left over like there was for me, I just add it into the dry ingredients, so you're not wasting any cocoa powder. And just as a quick restaurant tip, if this were a souffle, I would use a pastry brush and I'd brush the butter up the sides of the ramekins to help it rise evenly. But this batter is going to rise on its own, so I'm not too worried about that here. We're just trying to butter them so they don't stick. Let's check back in on the chocolate and butter. The butter isn't really melting all the way yet, so I'll just break it up with my spatula and let it keep melting. It should really look velvety and shiny, and it's going to be a nice, really smooth texture once it's ready. Now that the chocolate is fully melted, we'll pull it off the stove and bring it over to our workstation. First, I'll whisk the eggs just until they're evenly combined. Then we'll whisk together all the dry ingredients. And you'll notice they look a little darker because we had that extra cocoa powder that I added in there. Once the dry ingredients are mixed, I'll stir them into the chocolate first. This step really helps cool the mixture slightly, and then we'll add the eggs last. Doing it this way keeps the eggs from breaking or separating in the batter. You want to basically temper your eggs into this warm mixture, and by mixing that chocolate and flour together, we help the chocolate cool off before we add the eggs in. I ended up switching from a spatula to a whisk just to help the flour mix a little bit more evenly here. Once the batter is smooth and fully combined, we'll pour it evenly into the ramekins. So like I said initially, I had 4, but with these larger ramekins, we're really only getting 3 portions, so that extra ramekin that I prepped out is not going to get used. Once they're filled, we'll go straight into a preheated 420-degree oven. Bake just until the tops are starting to set. They're still going to have a little bit of jiggle to them. This really doesn't take very long. It's usually around 12 to 15 minutes, but start checking them pretty constantly once they hit that 10-minute mark. When these come out of the oven, the ramekins are very hot, so just be careful when you're handling them. You'll want to serve these right away while the centers are still warm and gooey. I'm keeping this one simple so you can really see that molten center, but you can absolutely dress these up however you'd like. And that's it, rich, gooey chocolate lava cake. This is one of those desserts that never disappoints. If you enjoy cooking like this, simple, intentional, and meant to be shared, make sure you subscribe and come gather at our table.